Call this meeting of Lima City Council to order. We'll begin tonight's meeting with the invocation by Councilor Miles, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father, we thank you for this gathering tonight, Father. We thank you for those who are in attendance tonight. Father, we pray your blessings upon our city administration, upon our mayor, upon our council members, upon our police department, upon our fire department, upon our first responders, Heavenly Father. I pray, Lord God, your protection, your provisions, as you watch over them day by day, as they protect our city. And Father, we pray tonight, Lord God, that you will bless this meeting, that we will all be united in mind and in spirit, Heavenly Father. Not sameness, Lord God, but a spirit of unity that will bring forth the prosperity and success of our city. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll have the clerk call the roll.
Councilor Gordon.
Here.
Councilor McLean.
Here.
Councilor Lowe.
Here.
Councilor Crayer.
Here.
Councilor Adams.
Here.
Councilor Glenn.
Here.
Councilor Miles.
Here.
And Councilor Nix.
Here. There are no amendments to tonight's agenda. Under privilege of the floor, we have Tim Guthrie.
Tim Guthrie, 1201 Belvedere, Lima. Well, I brought everybody a copy of the papers I have made up, and it's on the Mayor Berger salary, the Mayor of Lima salary. And if you go down to the city data per capita, in the mayor's salary, per dollars per capita, each person in Lima pays $3.37 to pay the mayor's salary. And if you go down below that in Cleveland, each person pays 34 cents to pay the mayor's salary. Cincinnati, it's 43 cents. Columbus, it's 20 cents. If you go next to that, percentage of the budget dollars used for the mayor's salary, in Lima, it's 0.089 of the budget. Cleveland, 0.025. Cincinnati, 0.034. Columbus, 0.025. It's just not right. It's all out of whack. So if you go to the next page, there's some graphs that show it. The one on the bottom, mayor's salary and population. If you look at Lima, the mayor's salary is a lot bigger than the population. 127 to 37. Cleveland, 388,000 population, 132,000. That's the same as Berger's making. The mayor of Lima makes the same as the mayor of Cleveland. And next year, it'll be more than the mayor of Cleveland. You go to Cincinnati, 298 population, 127,000 for the salary. Columbus is 850,000 people to the salary of 172. Columbus, hugely bigger than Lima, only pays their mayor $45,000 more than the mayor of Lima. Now, if you go to the next page, it's percentage share of budget dollars used for the mayor's salary. It's just a graph of what I showed you on the first page. It's way, way, way wrong. And then the next page, now if you go clear to the back, in my handwriting, it's if you'd have the mayor's salary at $85,000, which I think it should be at, it's 0.059 of the budget. If the mayor's salary, if we paid the mayor of Lima 0.025, like some of the others, that the mayor of Lima would make $36,000. And if you go to $90,000 a year, it's 0.062. So I think in 95 it'd be 0.66. And it proves that the mayor of Lima, whoever it is way overpaid. It's all right here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, the consent calendar.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
make a motion to receive, file, and approve item A, receive and file item B.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive, file, and approve item A and to receive and file item B. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 1.
From the Director of Community Development regarding legislation to place tax assessments.
Mr. President,
Ms. Craig.
I move that communication number 1 be received and filed.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 1. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 2.
From the Finance Director regarding legislation for budget amendments.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams.
I move that communication number 2 be received and filed. Legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 2. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 3.
From Chief Martin regarding legislation to transfer ownership of the police K-9.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Miles.
I move that communication number 3 be received and filed.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 3. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 4.
From Chief Martin regarding legislation to enter into a contract with Digital Intelligence.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Miles.
I move that communication number 4 be received and filed.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 4. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 5.
From Chief Martin regarding legislation to enter into a contract with Reineke Ford Lincoln.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Miles.
I move that communication number 5 be received and filed.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 5. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 6.
From the Director of Human Resources regarding legislation to amend the strength ordinance.
Mr. President,
Mr.
I
Glenn.
move that communication number 6 receive and file legislation on the night agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 6. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 7.
From the Auditor regarding legislation to enter into a contract with Spirion.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams.
I move that communication number 7 be received and filed. Legislation's on tonight's agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 7. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 8.
From the Auditor requesting legislation to enter into a contract with Perry Protec.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams.
I move that communication number 8 be received and filed, and that the law director be authorized to prepare any necessary legislation to comply with the request.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 8 and to authorize the law director to prepare the necessary legislation. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 9.
From the Director of Public Works regarding legislation to enter into a contractual service agreements.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon.
I move that communication number 9 be received and filed, and legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 9. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 10.
From the City Engineer regarding legislation to amend a contract with Hohenbrink Excavating.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon.
I move that communication number 10 be received and filed, and legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 10. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 11.
From the Deputy Director of Public Works regarding legislation to dispose of vehicles and equipment.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon.
I move that communication number 11 be received and filed, and legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 11. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Next, we have reports of officials, Patrolman Patty Wogerman and FOP President Mike Watkins. And it looks like Officer Randy Coley is going to be a close impersonation.
Yes, I am a substitute. Several years ago, the FOP and the FOPA developed a program, Cops and Kids. Our goal is to take kids to shopping on, and we always go the first Saturday of December. What we do is we hope to take 100 kids this year is the goal. And it's not just the kids, it's the family. Because when this young man or young lady gets picked, and who they get picked by is the school counselors, the school nurses, those folks that know where the need is. So therefore, we don't have any biases on it, and we take care of the kids that are in needs. And it goes out to all Allen County schools. Works out very, very well. And when we take them, the young man or the young lady, we go out to Myers, and they go with an officer. And they get to see that policemen are real people too and get to do real things with them. It is a very tear-jerking time. And they have to buy something for everyone in their family. They have to buy for their mother, their father, their brother, and sister. And then what's left over, we try to give every kid $200 gift cards, what we start with, and work it out that way. Then they get to pick something for themselves. But then when the communities come together, as they have in the past few years, is we got the barbers in Allen County have come together. So every kid that goes and shops for their whole family, and we go back to the FOP hall to wrap gifts, every kid gets a bike and a bike helmet to go along with it. And the Barbers Give Bikes program has provided every one of those children that. So this year we're at about $17,500. We're hoping to reach $20,000 by that December 3rd when we do that. I encourage all of you to come out on December 3rd if you want to have a good time. Not only that, policemen can do a lot of things, but some of them can't rap worth a darn. So we can always use a few extra tape, scissors, and make all that fall in place. It's nice. TJ's Pizza afterwards takes and provides pizzas for the whole family. So it's a good time. We have a great time on that day. It lasts from 8 o'clock in the morning till noon. But again, it's picked by the school counselors, school nurses, those folks in the community that know where our needs are. So we appreciate that very much. Anything else, Chief? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Next, the Public Works Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Works Committee met on 11/14 at 5 p.m. All council members received a copy of the minutes, and I asked that the minutes be received, filed, and approved.
Second?
The motion and the second is to receive, file, and approve. The committee report is submitted by Councilor Gordon. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. Next, we have ordinances, 23016.
This is the third reading, authorizing a change to the rate of pay for the position of mayor pursuant to City Charter, Chapter 667.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I move that ordinance 230-16 be passed on its third reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 23016 on its third reading. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean?
I'd like to address this a little bit. I'd like to explain a few things, too, that goes along with this. Is we're sitting here wanting to approve a measure of a mayor's pay at $135,387. Becomes on December 1st, 2017 for the next election cycle. Okay? That's a lot of money in most people's eyes. And you know, I go out amongst the public and I hear a lot about why are we paying the mayor of Lima so much? And you know, I have to bring it back to reality. Dave Berger's been with us for 28 years. He's a very knowledgeable mayor. But we have to look at council. We have to look at this as what our society and what our city can afford to pay and an equitable pay for that position. Now, at this point, I hear a lot of gut. I talk about the mayor and I talk about Sam Krish. It seems like the only thing people want to talk about. But to bring this back to reality, we have to get back in a position that we can accept a salary that's equitable with the amount of people that we have in our city. 35 to 37,000 people is what we have, and we have to get back to reality. We're not a overly large city. We can't afford to pay him. What could we do with the extra money if we could pay him less? Has he been a good mayor? That's not my point. My point is what is and what should a mayor of the city of Lima be paid? That's where we need to be. That's what our charter is going to involve. We talking about changing the charter. The charter review changed in 2013, if memory serves me right. I was most of those meetings with the charter review. We had a discussion on it when it came up. And you know what they said then? You guys control it by ordinance. We don't want to mess with it. We can't. That's what we should do. We should control it by ordinance. It has nothing to do with the charter review except to put some numbers out there that the city of Lima people can vote on. Can they change the language that's in the charter review? Absolutely. We can change that language. But you know when it's going to come up to council? It's going to come right back to council on how much we pay. We're the ones that's going to accept that before we allow it to go to the election board to be put on a ballot. So dealing with this now is what we should be doing. We should be dealing with this properly now, not 4 years from now. This is the time. We've had this in the committee for a long time. It is something that we should address. It is something that we as council are fiduciaries of the city of Lima. We are here to address that. We are here to protect that. So I want to make a motion through this before tonight. I want to talk a little bit about our ordinance, because if we go through as it has in the last 2 times and goes to a 5-3, it'll pass automatically at those wages. If one of you changes a mind and it goes 4-4, guess what? It reverts back to what is currently there. The only opportunity that we have today to change this as council is to change our ordinance by amending it. It's that simple. So, charter review is not our answer, because we're going to come right back and talk about it, or whoever's on council at that time, and talk about it, change it, manipulate it, put it back out on the ballot. It's all in one large, huge thing. They say yes or no on it. It's just part of a bunch of language. And that's the way it works. So we need to determine what is an equitable salary. I do want to make a motion to change this today. I want to change the amount. I am not interested in hurting anyone. I think as a fair and equitable amount for the mayor, for our position of mayor for the city of Lima, we have to determine a number. And we have to determine that number as it fair. What is it that's fair? It's a tough one. It's really tough, because we're sitting here with a mayor that's been around for a long time. Not whether he's done a good job or a bad job, that's not my point. My point is we have to go forward with the mayor's salary. We hear it from our people all over the streets. If you don't hear it, I want to hear it, because I hear it every day. I hear it every day. So I don't want to sit here and try to kill a salary. We've talked different numbers all through our discussion. And I know, Ms. Miles, you hate a compromise, but I want to talk a minute about a compromise, because I want a compromise. I want a number that we can live with. I would like to see, and I'll make a motion, that we change this number to $120,000 for our mayor's salary, and including giving the cost of living raises back to them if and when they come available. That's more than fair, that's more than equitable, and that's my motion. And I need a second.
Second.
So the motion and the second is to amend section 1 to 120,000. And where are you addressing the cost of living?
Well, that was part of our discussion when we were in committee.
Oh.
Am I correct? Am I correct?
Yes.
So we were taking that away to make it flat. And I think that if the cost of living does go up, they deserve more. The same as anybody else.
Okay. So the motion then is to amend section 1 from 135,387 to 120,000.
Correct.
And to and to restore in principle the cost of living rates increases.
Mr. President,
Mr. Geiger?
the first thing, procedural. Ms. Adams made a motion to pass it. Mr. Glenn seconded it.
Yep.
So that motion needs to be either disposed of or withdrawn in order to consider Mr. McLean's motion. We've got a motion pending on the floor
Mm-hmm.
that hasn't been voted on.
Okay, I guess, are you saying that we need to take the roll call on the original motion?
No. The same way we normally do it. The motion is, and second are withdrawn. Mr. McLean then can make a motion to pass it on third reading as amended. I mean, it's the same way that we handle all amendments with the ordinances.
Okay.
Normally, we make the amendment right up front, but in this case, for whatever, I mean, because of the mechanics of it, the motion was made to pass. So we just need the minutes to reflect that Counselor Adams is making the motion and Counselor Miles, I'm sorry, I said Glenn because he had done it the last time, had
Okay,
seconded the motion.
so they have to agree to withdraw the motion in the second.
Correct. And then
Are you
if
interested
Mr.
in withdrawing
McLean's...
the motion in the second?
Mr. President,
Mr. Glenn?
can I finish, can I talk, get an opportunity to talk before we get to this?
Mr. President,
Hold on, Mr. Glenn, please.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Geiger?
procedurally then, if Mr. McLean's motion does not pass, they can remake the motion to pass it on its third reading as read. So nobody's losing any rights here other than the right for a first-time vote on it as presented.
Now you really lost.
See, okay. For the point of discussion, I thought that the motion was made to pass it.
Right.
If he makes a motion under discussion to amend, that we vote on that motion.
Can't have two separate
Okay.
motions at the same time.
Okay. All right.
So are you saying that,
In order to go with his motion, if you want to entertain that at all, right now you have a motion on the floor to vote on this ordinance as it is, and Ann Miles seconded that motion.
right, and I need to table it,
No, you just need to withdraw your motion,
withdraw it?
if you want it to continue.
And then we go to his motion?
Right.
Yep,
And if that doesn't pass,
then we
You
come
come
back
back
to
to
yours.
come back to
You
this
you
motion.
have to remake yours.
You'll have to remake yours.
And that assumes that Council Miles will withdraw her second, which I think she will.
Can I say something before I decide what to do on that, Mr. President?
Yeah?
And the reason I'm a little hesitant is because, as Counselor McLean said, we had this discussion in committee where figures were thrown out, what would be acceptable. There was no consensus of agreement as to what the salary would be. And some had a higher, some had it lower. Someone negotiated and came down, and another committee member said, well, I may go up to, but still not that figure. And another counselor that was in attendance said, I won't approve anything over 100,000. So based on that is why we proceeded with this legislation. Because on committee, we couldn't get a consensus to a number. And I don't think we're going to get a consensus tonight to a number that is correct, that everyone will agree to. And
Then your option is to not withdraw your motion.
because, well, I'm confused because at the time, you know, the 120 was proposed in committee as a compromise. And that's what we could be looking at tonight, you know, in the third reading, possibly, or it could have passed under the first reading. But the committee members did not agree to that number. And I'm confused why now it seems to be an acceptable number.
Mr. President?
You're under no obligation to withdraw your motion.
I know,
is all I'm
I
saying.
understand
You
that.
can, you don't have to. Hold it, Mr. McLean. Mr. Glenn,
Yes.
you wanted to say.
Yes, I want to,
Let
let
me
me get
get
on
him
the floor
first,
before we
'cause I
get done with
made
this.
him
What I was looking at there, I had an opportunity to talk to a lot of folks on Friday and Saturday morning. And I was looking at Tim, paperwork here, a couple things that you didn't have in here, that them cities are ran by city managers. And when I explained to my folks in the 6th Ward about, they had the slightest idea that these cities ran by a city manager, and the city manager is strong, and city managers get paid more in them cities. And we does not have a city manager. And these are some of the things I had to continue talking to folks about, because they very upset about it, just like Sam say, two things you hear. I didn't hear about the sheriff, I heard about the police officer on videotape, and about the mayor's salary. Then was the thing, why the police officer not on admin leave? Then was some of the questions they brought to me. So, yeah, a lot of folks is upset about it, and when I explained to them about city manager, matter of fact, I went on the internet, picked it up, and showed them. Different cities have it. Different city does not. Our charter allow our mayor to continue to run. They on term limits. A lot of these things come to issues about the salaries, and which we are not addressed to it because we have, our charter allow us to continue running. Our charter allow us to be nonpartisan. Our charter allows us don't have a city manager, and a lot of that come up into play when they pay. So it does, because the city manager make a lot more than the mayor make, and the city manager has more power than the mayor. So we continue talking about that, but a lot of folks was still upset about what went on there, how it came about. Continue us trying to explain more and more to them, you know, how I go about. The work has been done. I mean, we went around circles with a lot of that, and they still was uncomfortable with that. They're very uncomfortable with it, and our charter does not say when our population go down, the salaries go down. Our city's ran by the charter, and also by our city council can make some decisions too. But these are some of the things a lot of folks didn't know about. If you stayed in Lima, you never know anything about how the salaries goes in bigger cities. You can't compare Toledo, Dayton, and Cincinnati, where it's ran by a city manager about making $140,000 a year, and the mayor make less money in the major cities. And that's why I try to explain to my people. You got a lot of corrections. You're correct on a lot of these. Cause I looked up a lot of the stuff on the same thing you're doing, you know. And a lot of people are doing their homework now. When they're here, they making phone calls. I know Rebecca picked up some things on other cities. When I went back and brought her information up to the people, they were like, wow, how that small city got a city manager? We don't have a city manager. We can get it in here if we want to. A city manager, if we elect to do that. And that'd be strong. We can make it stronger than the mayor or whatever option it is there. But it is a high salary. And it's a lot. And the folks was very upset about it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Mr. McLean.
Mr. President, when, as Councilor Adams alluded to, she brought up the issue of the last meeting and explained what went on with the last meeting and made a motion to accept this salary before any other councilman or council person on that committee had a chance to talk. I don't think I've ever been in a committee that it did it that instantly before anyone had a word to say. So she had a mind made up before we did this on that last meeting. I'm not against her. What I am against is what I'm hearing from our streets. What I have to do here is my job for city council is to be a fiduciary to make sure that we watch for the money of the city of Lima. Okay? Mayor Berger is out of my equation. It's a mayor. What should a mayor in our city at 37,000, what should they make? I don't want to pull the floor out from underneath him. I don't want to. I don't want to change anything if I didn't have to. But I think it's our responsibility to make these changes. It's our responsibility to do it now. We don't need to wait 4 more years before another council can proceed to have this same issue. We need to address it. That's why I made that motion. It's a motion that I think we all can live with. It's about 11% decrease of what he's going to make next year. Not this year, next year.
Mr. President?
Ms. Adams?
At the beginning of your statement, Mr. McLean, Councilor McLean, I opened that meeting in a review process for those that either were not in attendance at that time to review what had been discussed in the past. When I made the motion, I knew there would be a time for discussion at that time, which we did have, did we not?
Oh, we did. I'm not arguing that point.
And
I
that's
just said I've
when
never
other-
been in that position.
And that's when other things came up, proposals, and that was to get us to the point of trying to come together as a committee, to a consensus, to proceed with legislation because of the need to do this year prior to the next election. So there was a discussion, and that's where you originally had come up with 95,000. My proposal had been the 135 frozen with no cost of living. I came down to 120. You said you may go to 110. And I thought, may go. And then another counselor that was in attendance said, I'll not approve anything over 100. And then a citizen that was in the meeting said it shouldn't be above 85. And we were getting all these numbers thrown around.
Was that open discussion?
Yes, it was.
Or was that between just you and I?
That was an open discussion.
So we actually said that and to the open public, right?
Yes, we did. It was in the minutes of the meeting that I submitted to council a month ago, prior to this
But
legislation.
you see, Mrs. Adams, what we had a motion on the floor. When you went through everything and you made that motion to begin with, we had to dispense of that motion first.
And we had the
Before
open.
anything else could come out. We didn't
I
have a
didn't know
chance.
if
We
I
didn't
was
have a
gonna
chance
get-
to even make it 120 or 110 because your motion had to come out first.
I didn't know if we were going to even get a second.
It wasn't for me, I'm sorry,
I know, but I'm just saying, I didn't even know if that would go.
but your motion was already out there. We didn't have an opportunity to make any other motion. Your motion had to be first.
No, because that's legislation.
Ask him.
No, it's the same principle that
Yeah.
would apply.
Same principle.
And I may be misreading things, Mr. President, but I suggest the place to start is with Councilor Miles to see if she's going to withdraw the second. Because if she does, that makes everything move.
And I'm willing to withdraw my second.
Counselor Adams, are you willing to withdraw your?
Well, you said it makes it move.
Well,
No.
you
No.
can either withdraw your original motion or not, in which case somebody else then would have to make the second.
I'm not gonna withdraw it.
I'll second it. Is there any further discussion? Let's have the clerk call the roll.
Counselor Miles,
Okay, what are we voting on? Let's get.
we're voting on the original ordinance.
I think Mr.
Yeah.
Gordon wants to
To
say
approve
something.
ordinance
3016,
236.
Mr. President,
On the third reading.
I got something to say.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Gordon?
I thought you meant, was there any more discussion on what Mr. McLean brought up? I had my actual first call on this issue. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And I had a resident call me and ask me, or, tell me that he didn't mind what the current mayor was making. And he asked a question about a pay scale. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I told this resident that I would ask the law director to explain why we wouldn't have because this question came up in my mind early on, being an old union person. Why couldn't you have a pay scale for a mayor with a lot of seniority or a lot of, terms or whatnot, as opposed to what a new mayor made? Because this person's concern would be when a new mayor would take place. So if I could, I would like to ask Mr. Geiger to explain why we couldn't do that.
Mr. President,
Mr. Geiger.
the city charter sets forth only one qualification for a person to be mayor, and that is residency. There are no other qualifications that are listed in the charter for a mayor to hold. So there's no opportunity for council to add a qualification of the number of terms, whether it's a first term or a second term or longer than that, to set the salary based upon a qualification, because that qualification is not listed in the charter. So council cannot create one that's not there. If the charter is changed, the charter does not have to be changed to reflect a specific salary for the mayor. My suggestion is if council authorizes the issue to go to the electorate, that it would just simply be language that authorizes council to establish the qualifications that it deems appropriate, and a salary then based upon those qualifications. That authority just does not exist in the charter as it's presently written. But as said, it can be changed. The notion of an incoming elected official making the same amount as the outgoing elected official is really very commonplace. If you think about it, about every elected official, every elected office that you can think of, that's the way it is. That's the way it's set up. The new person makes the same as the old person, because salaries generally are based upon the assessment of the value or merit of the position, not the qualifications of the person holding the position. So there's nothing unique about what's taking place with the mayor's position. It's the same for all of us as elected officials, and as I said, probably every other elected office that you can think of throughout the whole country. But that's the reason, Councilor Gordon, is that the charter doesn't provide for that additional, council to add that additional qualification in there. But it can be changed.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
President, I guess I want to say some comments here too before we vote here.
Yes.
I withdrew my, my second here, not to go against what has been said in the committee, but as I have talked about over years, is that we need to come together as a unit. You know, we're not always going to be able to agree, but we have to, agree to disagree. And then there's sometimes that somebody's got to be a better person. Someone's got to step up and say, hey, this back and forth is not going to get us any place. If we're going to come together as a group of committee members, leaders in this community, this back and forth bickering over, to me, $12,000, $15,000, to me, is a good middle point here. Is not each side is not going to get their way, and we see that tonight here. But sometimes, we've got to kind of say, hey, what's the best for our city? I mean, do we continue to let this subject divide our city, or do we agree that we've got to come and to some type of agreement on what is best for our city? Again, to me, $12,000 difference, $15,000 difference is not worth all of this back and forth bickering. Yes, we agreed upon this in the committee, but I was one of the committee members in this here. And I'm willing, as a person that is seeking unity among us, to seek peace among us, to seek harmony. $12,000 is not going to hurt my feelings if I don't get my way based on how I voted in that committee, because I was for keeping it the way it was. And so I am saying right now, let's not let this divide us. Even if we vote on $120,000, there's going to be people in this community who will still not be happy. We are not going to please everybody in this community. One of the things that one individual said to me is that a salary is not based on the population, the median income, but it's based on the job responsibilities. And in every city, I would bet that every job responsibility of a mayor is totally different from our city. Until you look deep, do a deep dive into those salaries in these communities, you will never know what their job responsibilities are. And so again, while we're comparing the bigger cities, we do not know exactly what the job structure is. We don't know what the organizational breakdown is for that particular mayor's office. And so I say for right now, as a committee, let's decide on this and let's go on with our lives. There is so many other things in this state that we need to be arguing about and fighting for. And this $12,000, $15,000 should not be an issue that we should be dealing with tonight on a long-term basis.
Thank you, Mrs. Miles.
Hi.
Other,
Hi there.
hi, Mr.
Mr.
Creer.
President. I'll go easy on you. Okay.
Not going easy or hard on me.
I just add a few things. I can see and view that she feels like this should be an easier issue for all of us to agree on. And I don't know what the situation is with the counselors and their residents. And as I have discussed with a resident in the house tonight, Mr. Bartels, I really have received an overwhelming amount of people who have felt this is a big issue for them. Even with the proposed legislation we have on the table tonight, I received, right when the press came out, overwhelming response from people in the next 48 hours, whether that be judges or CEOs or just regular laypersons. And I would take the page of the budget we get at the finance committee, and I would let which is page 11, and I would let them look at it for themselves. Right? I think that residents, when they have questions, they need facts, because what if I'm wrong? I'm one person, I'm one opinion, and I would look at them. And really, out of in the 2 to 3 days after the meeting came out, when we first brought this legislation forward, the very first time, 30 people said, Rebecca, this is not acceptable. And 2 people had said it is okay. So whatever our different opinions are tonight, I'm accountable to those people who said this has to be done differently. And I think the finance committee had a hard job to do. There's no easy way to make amendments to this. So in my own opinion, I'm accountable to those people who elected me, just like all the rest of us are. And majority of people that reach out to me are people who said, even the legislation we have tonight, we're not happy with that. So because of that, that's where I stand tonight.
Mr. President, can I ask Mrs. Crayer, what did you tell?
Ms. Crayer.
What did you tell your constituents that what did they tell you would be a good salary? Did they all agree what a good salary was? Because nobody knows what a good salary is for the mayor.
That's true. And to answer your question, Mrs. Miles, I didn't ask them to tell me what a comparable salary was. Some of them were CEOs, some of them are, judges, and I had specifically the wife to the judge said, Rebecca, our current mayor makes more than my husband does as a judge. And she was not okay with that. Now, I didn't want to corner her and say, well, what's a good salary, right? That's not her responsibility.
But that is your responsibility. If you are representing your constituents, and I don't say this to be mean, but if you're representing them, if you're wanting to please them, you need to know exactly what they're looking for you to seek in this committee to accomplish. If they're saying that the salary that is presently being given to our mayor is not correct, then you need to know from them, as a council, as you are representing them, you say, what is a good salary, so that you can fight for that. Because if you came up with $80,000 and they would say, that is not what I think is a good salary. So, how deep do we go, or how do we consider and how do we try to please every single constituent? Because I bet if you would have asked all 10 of them, they would all have a different salary.
Well, the 30 people that I did speak to, if they had a consensus, if there was a dollar amount I would have put out there, they probably would have said, sure, great. But that's not their responsibility to come up with the amount. It's our responsibility, and it's specifically the finance committee, so.
But again, I would say, what is a good salary, reasonable salary for our city?
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams.
that is what part of the purpose of this legislation was, for us as a group to have that discussion, to come together, to decide what is a salary going forward through the city charter. Maybe look at term limits as well. Decide where we're all coming from, what our bases are of determining what we feel is a salary that is acceptable. I think each one of us has a different figure in our head. I have not commented on being contacted by anyone. I had one person in this past month, and it was on voting day, approach me in my ward. I've had no one contact me, one way or the other. I've had one. So am I to assume it's not that important to them? That they did not reach out to me, because they reach out to me on other issues. This has not been one of them. So I do listen to my constituents. I do respond to them. This was not one of those issues that they reached out to me. So I am not ignoring anyone in this legislation. And that again was the purpose, was to suspend the cost of living on this and freeze the salary for the 4 years so that we could have that discussion, because we've had different figures thrown out publicly and on council and in committee. We have different bases. I can hold up this stack of paper and show you the research that's been done based on the census, which is the most accurate going forward on population of cities, what the pays were at that time, and comparable. And as Councilor Glenn said, one of the cities that was noted tonight was Cleveland. They not only have a city manager, they have a deputy city manager. And on the paperwork, they're paying those people. In Cleveland, it's $140,000 for a city manager and $115,000 for the deputy city manager, along with the mayor's salary at that time of $46,000. So we're looking at $255,000 plus the 46. I mean, we can look at this, and that doesn't include their support staff and their clerks. They even have assistant administrators. I just felt, we as council, and with the review coming up for the city charter starting next year, that we could have this discussion and go into greater detail and come to a consensus. But as far as in the 12th hour of this legislation, I don't think tonight's the night to do that. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean?
need to ask you for a temporary adjournment to confer with the law director.
On what basis?
Provide legal advice.
Okay. How long do you need?
10
At the most.
at the most.
Probably 5.
Okay. Who's included in the legal advice?
Initially, Mr. McLean and potentially all council members.
Okay.
So we're going
There's a
to-
request to adjourn for 10 minutes. Is there any, does it need a motion?
I made the motion to adjourn.
Second. Okay.
There.
Okay. The motion, the second, is to adjourn for 10 minutes for seeking of legal advice. Is there any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. We're adjourned.
We doing this in the office center?
To pass ordinance 23016. It was seconded. Is there any final discussion? Let's have the clerk call the roll.
Counselor Miles,
Yes.
Counselor Nixon,
Yes.
Counselor Gordon,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
No.
Counselor Lowe,
No.
Counselor Crayer,
No.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Glenn.
No.
Ordinance 230-16 does not pass. It got a 4-4 vote. Ordinance 237-16.
Levying special assessments for property maintenance code charges on premises in the city of Lima, Ohio.
Mr. President,
Ms. Crayer.
I move that ordinance 237-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second. The motion, the second, is to pass ordinance 237-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles,
Yes.
Counselor Nixon,
Yes.
Counselor Gordon,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Counselor Crayer,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Glenn.
Yes.
Ordinance 237-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 238-16.
Amending the 2016 annual budget.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I move that ordinance 238-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to pass ordinance 238-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles,
Yes.
Counselor Nixon,
Yes.
Counselor Gordon,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Counselor Crayer,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Glenn.
Yes.
Ordinance 238-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 239-16.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Spirion Personnel Services.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I move that ordinance 239-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to pass ordinance 239-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will have the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles,
Yes.
Counselor Nixon,
Yes.
Counselor Gordon,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
No.
Counselor Crayer,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Glenn.
No.
Ordinance 239-16 has been passed on its first reading by a 6-2 vote. Ordinance 240-16.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with GE Intelligent Platforms, Inc. for water and wastewater plant control software.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean.
I move that ordinance 240-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to pass ordinance 240-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles,
Yes.
Counselor Nixon,
Yes.
Counselor Gordon,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Counselor Crayer,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Glenn.
Yes.
Ordinance 240-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 241-16.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Reineke Ford Lincoln of Lima for the purchase of 2 vehicles for the police department.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Miles?
I move that ordinance number 241-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to pass ordinance 241-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will have the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles,
Yes.
Counselor Nixon,
Yes.
Counselor Gordon,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Counselor Crayer,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Glenn.
Yes.
Ordinance 241-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 242-16.
Authorizing the mayor to de-asset and transfer police K-9 Max to Sergeant Nick Hart.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Miles?
I move that ordinance number 242-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to pass ordinance 242-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will have the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles,
Yes.
Counselor Nixon,
Yes.
Counselor Gordon,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Counselor Crayer,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Glenn.
Yes.
Ordinance 242-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 243-16.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Digital Intelligence.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Miles?
I move that ordinance number 243-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to pass ordinance 243-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles,
Yes.
Counselor Nixon,
Yes.
Counselor Gordon,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Counselor Crayer,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
and Counselor Glenn.
Yes.
Ordinance 243-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 244-16.
Establishing the positions and classifications hereinafter set forth and fixing the salary and compensation of such positions and classifications repealing existing inconsistent ordinances as herein described.
Mr. President.
Mr. Glenn?
Oh, boy, I lost track. I move that 244-16 be passed on its first reading. Has
The
been
motion
read.
and the second is to pass ordinance 244-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion?
Send that dates right there.
Will the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles?
Yes.
Counselor Nixon?
Yes.
Counselor Gordon?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Lowe?
Yes.
Counselor Crayer?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Glenn?
Yes.
Ordinance 244-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 245-16.
Amending ordinance 8816.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon?
I move that ordinance 245-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 245-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles?
Yes.
Counselor Nixon?
Yes.
Counselor Gordon?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Lowe?
Yes.
Counselor Crayer?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Glenn?
Yes.
Ordinance 245-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. 246-16.
Authorizing the mayor to dispose of miscellaneous public works vehicles and equipment.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon?
I move that ordinance 246-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 246-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? We'll have the clerk call the roll.
Counselor Miles?
Yes.
Counselor Nixon?
Yes.
Counselor Gordon?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Lowe?
Yes.
Counselor Crayer?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Glenn?
Yes.
Ordinance 246-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 247-16.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into contracts with custom staffing for engineering, electrical inspection, and administrative assistance services.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon?
I move that ordinance 247-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 247-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? We'll have the clerk call the roll.
Counselor Miles?
Yes.
Counselor Nixon?
Yes.
Counselor Gordon?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Lowe?
No.
Counselor Crayer?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Glenn?
No.
Ordinance 247-16 has been passed on its first reading by a 6-2 vote. Ordinance 248-16.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into contract with JP Management for engineering technician services.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon?
I move that ordinance 248-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 248-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? We'll have the clerk call the roll.
Counselor Miles?
Yes.
Counselor Nixon?
Yes?
Counselor Gordon?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Lowe?
Yes.
Counselor Crayer?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
And Counselor Glenn?
Yes.
Ordinance 248-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 249-16.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for plans examiner services for calendar year 2017.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon?
I move that ordinance 249-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to pass ordinance 249-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles?
Yes.
Counselor Nixon?
Yes.
Counselor Gordon?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Lowe?
Yes.
Counselor Crayer?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Glenn?
Yes.
Ordinance 249-16 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 250-16.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for certified building official and administrator services for calendar year 2017.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon?
I move that ordinance 250-16 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to pass ordinance 250-16 on its first reading. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Lowe?
how long is this contract for?
For calendar year 2017.
Only? I thought, okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Will have the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Miles?
Yes.
Counselor Nixon?
Yes.
Counselor Gordon?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
No.
Counselor Lowe?
No.
Counselor Crayer?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Glenn?
Yes.
Ordinance 250-16 has been passed on its first reading by a 6-2 vote. Miscellaneous business, Counselor Miles.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call a meeting for the Safety Service Committee on Monday, December the 5th at 5:30, and as before council meeting. And this will be discussing teens and BB guns per the request of Councilor Crayer. And I'd like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving at this time of year when we have so much to be thankful for. I just want everybody to have an enjoyable time, spend time with your family, enjoy your families. You know, yesterday is gone, today is today, and tomorrow we may not be around here. So let's enjoy each other, and let's, share brotherly love with everybody. You know, if you know of anyone that maybe do not have a place to go, or someone maybe who is thinking about a loved one that was here last year, and you know that they're still thinking about it, just think about them, and maybe, spend some time with them, invite them over, be sympathetic to them. And again, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mrs. Miles. Mr. Gordon?
I too want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and remember those in need. Not everybody has somebody to go have Thanksgiving dinner with, so it's important that we remember folks like that. And in this holiday season, I'd also like to remind people to be good to each other. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Mr. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to echo their thoughts for Thanksgiving. It is a family gathering day. Please enjoy them. And if you know of someone that's maybe on the outside looking into your family, bring them inside, serve them a little turkey, give them a place to rest their little head after they had some turkey and dressing. So, and have a little camaraderie. It's important to know your neighbors. So if you have neighbors that are maybe just a single person, get out there and see if you can't get them to come over for Thanksgiving dinner. They need the interaction. So, and secondly, I know this is the last part of our November, and we're going to be missing one of our persons in the back there, Amy Odom. She is going to be leaving us. I understand that November 30th is her last day, and I, from the depth of my heart, want to tell you thank you. You've helped me. I have learned from you many things. I've asked a lot of questions. I definitely don't want anything to do with your job because you have way too much reporting to do. But it's a very big part of our city, and you do a great job, and I wish you the best in whatever you do in the future. I wish I could go with you on your trip. Have fun, and thank you. Last but not least, not everybody in this room or any room is going to tell you the election came out the way they thought it was going to. But we now have a reason to understand the Electoral College. And when you do figure it out and you understand how politics works a little bit, you understand that we're going to live with what we have. We're going to have to make the best of it locally and from our state. So pull your big boy pants up and let's get these next 3 or 4 years through us and do what's right for our citizens of Lima. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Mr. Lowe?
Thank you, Mr. President. I got one question for the administration. On ordinance 250, where we did another contract for another year with our certified building official, what happened to the individual that was supposed to be taking his place, and why is it taking so long for them to step into this role?
Mayor?
Mr. President, the individual is in training. It's anticipated to be several more years. It's a 4 or 5 year training cycle in order to become certified in all aspects of the building examination process.
Okay. I was under the impression that was going to take up to 2 years, 3 maybe. And again, I'm not seeing no change of name, so we weren't told years when we first
Yes, you were, sir.
agreed to this. Second thing is, to those here and those that are at home, I would like to say, I said a prayer before I came to council tonight because I knew some things were going to get a little touchy. And my answer was be still. And the outcome came out like it did. I'm going to have to trust that, and we'll move forward. The other thing that I need to say is this. I've also had more discussion about the mayor's salary. And I'm not down at any counselor up here, but if you didn't receive any kind of discussion on this, I don't know where you were at. And maybe because I deal with a lot of people for the work that I do, but I guarantee you, at least every other person had something to say about our mayor's salary, about our sheriff, or about the individuals that were standing downtown. I heard it all day long. I told them and invited them to start taking advantage of their privileges, which is come to council, which is to get involved, which is to get into your neighborhood associations and get active. And I gave them all the information that was given to us, okay? People have a very bad sense of hopelessness in this city, and they're tired of the same old. And it was mentioned this evening about term limits, and we had the opportunity to change some things. We did. And there was another counselor who's not here that brought it up all the time. Every office has term limits except in the city of Lima. We need to look at that again. And that's not saying the individual's doing a bad job or a great job, but change is good. Okay, we just seen democracy at its finest here this last couple of weeks. Okay? The other thing I'm going to address is the third topic that I spoke on, about the individuals down in the square. Comments were made, not only on the local news, but Facebook and some other social media. And they asked, Mr. Lowe, why aren't you out there again? And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to put some business out that people had no clue about. But when I stood with Drugs Bring Death, I gave up everything I had to help people, including my own home. And I lost my home because I seen individuals lost. And I kind of took a hit when they said, well, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that? I've given all Jesse could give at that time. I did. And people don't understand the homes that we went to, and we sat with families for hours crying because they had family members trying to get help and seek help. And again, I gave everything I had towards it. I think it was very successful. We was able to get over 40-something people help. We've had people that graduated, we got people that's still on the program. I'm still in communication with them. I still have some of their family members that come to me and they talk to me. And it's not always about visual. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. When I stood out, I wasn't standing out with the signs and the shirts to draw attention. I was standing out to grow fellowship amongst individuals and citizens in the community. And we fed them. And when you get to feeding people, they get to talking. When you found out what was that person all about. There's people standing behind me. A lot of the individuals in LACNIP, I didn't even know them. Those three gentlemen right there stood out there. I didn't even know them until I started doing this. And you started building relationships and it brought your community closer. Now I know where these individuals' hearts is at. I know where their heart's at. And one of them came to me and said, well, Mr. Lowe, I don't know what to do. And I told them what I would do. And he didn't agree with it. And I haven't seen him. I'm not upset. But when you don't have a plan, things fail. You have to have a plan. And you also got to see who's at the center of it all. And you got to recognize him. Okay? It took his help for me to get where I was at. There's people in this city that are screaming for help. And it's sad that, and this is no credit to me, but when my team was out there doing it, nobody said nothing because it wasn't affecting their household. Now when you turn on the news, now it's an epidemic because now it's my child, or it's my husband, or it's my father, or it's my niece or nephew that's addicted to it. We were saying this in '08, screaming it, like, please help. Do this, stop this ball before it gets to rolling. As a counselor, I'm ashamed that we don't have centers that can meet some of these needs. And we've had individuals stand right at this pulpit and say, we can help, we can help, we can help. They couldn't help when my people went down there. I had to take them to Cincinnati, Columbus, Sydney. And they're doing very well. Now some things have changed. I have talked with one of the directors. Things have changed and they got some medicine out here now, but now they're becoming addicted to that medicine. And you have to start with these young kids. The DARE program is active, not active enough. We have kids that are raising kids that are raising kids, and no one's teaching anybody how to be responsible or to even be a parent, or even how to be family. So we as a community need to start praying a little harder, showing love a little harder, being a little quieter and listen to see what people are really going through. And pay attention, as counselors, I'm saying this to all y'all. Y'all can get upset if you want. We got to start paying attention to our constituents in this city. Remove ego and vote the way they ask us to vote. Give them the information. And then let them come back. There was one point. What did you give them? We have to start doing that, you guys. We're going to be in this same boat every week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Ms. Crayer?
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to thank Councilor Glenn for inviting me to the 6th Ward Awards dinner. That was quite a fun experience. The dinner was delicious. I have not had that much turkey in a long time, so it was a good event. Good to meet new people, but it was great to see people who deserve awards to get an award, because I think we don't say thank you enough to people who invest. And all of the people that were there that night who received award, rightfully so, were investors in the community. And it was just a wonderful time to be a part of that. I'd also like to thank Amy. When I first came onto council, she sat me down in her office, I would say 2 hours every couple weeks, educated me on a lot of things I was stepping into. Even if we disagree, it's been quite a fun time, and I'm happy that she's my neighbor, and I know that she's not going too far. So worst case scenario, I might happen to text her at 3 o'clock in the morning accidentally if I have a question. So thank you, Amy. Thirdly, if you don't have a place to go this Thanksgiving, Jerry Lewis family has a wonderful dinner at the Civic Center. They start around 11 o'clock. And the food's delicious. The company's wonderful, but they also have live music. They also give out things that people need. Sometimes it's coats and scarves. Sometimes it's bags of food. Sometimes it's all of those things. So if you know someone or you yourself don't have a place to go, or you want to get involved, it's important that we are involved in communities. And whether that be people that have Thanksgiving dinners we're invited to, that's a Mexican dinner, and we're gonna go eat someone else's cooking, or we go and we be a part of something bigger than ourselves, and that serve other people. That's really what Thanksgiving is about. So, around 11 o'clock, you can find a delicious dinner at the Civic Center this Thursday. In honor of former counselor David Adams, I found a quote for Thanksgiving. It is by it appears to be from Craig Longsborough. God bless that guy for having a name like that. But it says, "Thankfulness is an attitude of possibilities, not an attitude of liabilities." So, to all of you, I wish you happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crayer. Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Mr. President. I too would like to thank Ms. Odom for her years of service, for her assistance, and when I was chair of the committee, and understanding all of the ins and outs and the funds and allocations, and can go on and on, plus also support in addressing code issues, violations in my ward. I could go on and on, but basically, thank you, Miss Odom. You will be missed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Glenn?
Yes, got a couple things here. First, I want to thank you, Rebecca, so much. You did a dynamic speech, and you kept the crowd there. And they was talking about it when we was there Sunday cleaning up, that you're a great speaker, and we know you love your ward because the work you do and the way you spoke at the dinner, that you're there in your area. And second of all, I want to thank my folks. And this is one of the first time that I really had a lot of support behind something, what they wanted to do. And all the time I was talking to the people in the 6th Ward saying, how do you feel? I'm not taking no survey no more. I'm done with surveys. I'll support this every Monday night until I see you guys come with a group and come to me and let me know and do your research and tell me, do you think the mayor should have a salary, higher salary there? Or you think that what you have read, that you're all right with it? And they continue debating. We continue debating it week after week. And because they have never told me what they really feel until this Friday and Saturday. They came out and talked about it, And a lot of them said, we're going to support you no matter what. You're doing a good job. This is how we feel. I've been with you for 10 years, Derek, but this is how I feel. And I still debate with them. I still continue putting stuff on the table. Come Monday, I support it. Because no one can give me a concrete answer. What I had put out there, what I looked at, what I researched, that's what I feel. Until this past Friday and Saturday, they came together as one. Explain why. And they heard Rebecca a lot. Yeah, we put you in office. And you're right. They put us in office, And this is where they feel, And but I want a concrete information from them. I didn't want no drive by and say something and keep walking. Tell me why. And that's what they did. And I appreciate you guys so much that, I want this to continue to happen. There's a lot of things on this, not just mayor's salary. We got the temp service, all that stuff we need to talk about. There's some things we got to talk about, And a lot of things. The police department, they brought that up. Mine wasn't dealing with the people downtown. Mine was dealing with white officers not on administrative leave. Okay? Sheriff Christie didn't come up the whole weekend. The mayor's salary and why they not on administrative leave. That's what people was talking to me about. And that was our whole discussion, but I wanted them to stay on the mayor's salary. What did you guys feel? And a lot of them supported Dave. A lot of them been with Dave for a long time. So that's what we're looking at. I appreciate you guys that ready for that. Amy, thank you so much. And I think I've been knowing you. I've been knowing you for a while when you came from rehab. I was a little kid then, so I'm making you older. And Amy came to our neighborhood, and so. And I told Mom she's retired. She said she's too young to retire. I said, no, Amy older than me. But good luck, Amy. And I know you was just telling me all the stuff you got to do, and you can have fun. I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And we gave out turkeys, and I appreciate everyone, the donations and everything that helped us out. Jerry Lewis is going to have a good event. Let's make it happen. No one should go without eating Thanksgiving Day. No one. If anyone, let's make sure. I know they're changing things around a little bit. They're trying not to celebrate Thanksgiving because all these stores open up at 5 o'clock, some of them at 3. Please, try to stay at home with your family. Let them stores stay open. Do it Friday morning. Because family is more important than anything. Family. And I told my kids, my wife and them that our family come first. Just don't worry about themselves. Let's stick around. They'll be there. They'll be there Friday morning. But I appreciate all the stores closing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Obviously, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, but everybody else has said that. I also want to congratulate Amy Odom on her retirement, and remind you that you still have 8 more days of hard labor we expect. There have been a lot of issues over the years, and I appreciate your leadership, guidance, cooperation, compromise on issues that we've had to deal with. It was a tough job coming in. You did a good job, and I appreciate everything you've done for the city of Lima. And I wish you the best in retirement. Thank you. There's no further business.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I move that city council adjourn until December 5th at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. in these chambers.
Second.
Motion the second is that Lima City Council will adjourn until December 5th at 7 p.m. in these chambers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned.